this is Lady Boulay, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Thank you for supporting the channel, and thank you for your thumbs up and your comments. I enjoy reading the comments. And today we're going to talk about a revolutionary, and the subject is the complicated life of Nat Turner. Nat Turner is one of those characters from Black American history that America doesn't like to talk about, because he was the consummate revolutionary. He didn't want to compromise. He didn't want to be the favorite of the slave master or the overseer of the other enslaved people. He wanted freedom, not only for himself, but for his people. What makes him different from somebody like Frederick Douglass or some of the other Underground Railroad rescuees is that Nat Turner was not so much interested in his freedom. He was interested in the freedom of the enslaved people. This is the person who thinks like a king. When the king goes to war, he's not just going to war for himself. He wants his freedom for his kingdom and for his people. And this is what makes him complicated, because as brave as he was living in the state of Virginia. Follow the arrows. He was living in Virginia. He was bordered by two free states, Pennsylvania and Ohio. As courageous as he was, if he just wanted to be free himself, he would have escaped to one of those states. But his freedom alone was not enough for him. He wanted all of the enslaved people in that area to be freed, and he was willing to die for that. That's a true revolutionary. He didn't just want his freedom, he wanted his people to be free. In that way, he shares similarity with Harriet Tubman. It wasn't enough for her to escape to freedom. She kept coming back into the South and freeing other enslaved people. The difference is that she was doing it peacefully through a network that was set up by white people, and he was acting on his own in there's no other way to say it, violent way. So who is this man named Nat Turner, and why is his story so important to Black American history? Nathaniel Nat Turner was born in Southampton County, Virginia on October 2nd, 1800, the son of an enslaved family owned by Benjamin Turner, a prosperous farmer. And the only reason he was prosperous was because he had all of those enslaved people working on his plantation. Taught to read by the son of his owner, I doubt that. He most likely taught himself to read. Turner studied Christianity, which he interpreted as condemning slavery. Turner also began to believe that God had chosen him to free his people from slavery. He soon became known among the others enslaved as the prophet. Nat Turner was a preacher among the enslaved people, and this is a picture of the Bible that he studied from. Turner was sold to slaveholder Joseph Travis in 1830. Less than a year after the sale, Turner received what he assumed was a sign from God when he witnessed the eclipse of the sun. After sharing this experience with a few close friends, they began to plan an insurrection. While still planning the uprising, Turner saw that the color of the sun had changed to a bluish green, which he believed was the final sign to initiate the uprising. With this confidence, Turner and 7 other enslaved men moved forward with their plans. They first deleted the entire Travis family and eventually 50 whites in the futile effort to incite a general slave uprising. Only 75 slaves and free blacks joined the rebellion. Now let's break this down. He and 7 other enslaved men planned this insurrection. It is important to note that Nat Turner is one of the very few, if not the only, enslaved man that planned an insurrection and was able to carry it through. The rest of them were not able to carry it through because one of the enslaved people ran back and told the slave master. Also, don't let the facts be lost. When historians write about this insurrection, they rush by what they did to get to what happened to them. Let's not rush by it. They caused terror in that Virginia countryside. It was a bloodbath that they left behind them. Nat Turner and these 7 men and other enslaved people joined in. It said about 75 of them in all, which means it was probably more than that, because they don't ever like to give the correct numbers when they're talking about anything to do with black people if it's going to make the white people look bad. So it was probably more than 75. Nobody really knows how many white people they destroyed in that process. So let's not skip over it, because that's what they like to do. They like to rush through what these enslaved people did and get to what they did to them for causing the terror. But they carried through an insurrection, and it worked. Now, they knew they were putting their lives on the line. They weren't crazy, but they carried it through. And it's important that some black people really can keep a secret, but you really need to know who you're talking to. After it was known to the local authorities what Nat Turner and his comrades were doing, they were pursued by over 3,000 members of the state militia, the army. One was killed and the others were captured. It took them 6 weeks to find Nat Turner. They didn't capture him right away. The rebellion had lasted for 2 days. Nat Turner escaped and eluded Virginia authorities for 2 months, but was finally captured and tried for insurrection and murder. Now, the only way they captured him was they beat and tortured his wife to tell them everything that she knew about what he was doing. And it took the whole army looking for 7 or 8 black people, or however many there were, and it took them 2 months to find them. Nat Turner was executed 6 days after his trial on November 5th, 1831, in retaliation for what the enslaved people had done. Nearly 200 innocent enslaved persons were killed. And we're not surprised by that either. So whenever an insurrection or a plot of an insurrection is uncovered, then the state or the national government would enact even more stringent laws against the enslaved people or the free blacks. So during this rebellion, Virginia legislators targeted free blacks with the colonization bill, which allocated new funding to remove them to Africa, and a police bill that denied free blacks trial by jury and made any free blacks convicted of a crime subject to sale into slavery and relocation, because the free blacks had joined Nat Turner's rebellion. So they targeted the free blacks, and then at least 7 enslavers sent legislative petitions to Virginia's General Assembly for compensation for the loss of their enslaved people, but they were all rejected. Also, after this rebellion, the Virginia General Assembly passed the legislation making it unlawful to teach reading and writing to either enslaved or free blacks, and restricting all blacks from holding religious meetings without the presence of a licensed white minister. Other slaveholding states in the South enacted similar laws restricting activities of both enslaved and free blacks. Across Virginia and other southern states, legislators made it against the law for either whites or blacks to possess abolitionist publications. South Carolina built a series of arsenals to ensure weapons would be available in the event of another slave rebellion. So that's all of that, because Nat Turner said he was called by God to do what he did, and he did it. And he carried through with it. And he lost his life. Jesus came preaching the word, and he ended up losing his too. So sometimes when you're acting on the authority of God, maybe, just maybe, you might lose your life. Nat Turner married an enslaved woman named Cherry. Here is a picture that went with the story. I'm not sure this is actually him and his wife, but this is the picture that I found. The couple had children, and it's believed that they had one daughter and two sons. After the rebellion, the authorities beat and tortured Cherry Turner in hopes of finding her husband. On September 26, 1831, the Richmond Constitution Whig published a story about the raiding of the plantation that Nat Turner's wife lived on, and stating that some papers were given up by his wife under the lash, which means they beat her until she told them what she knew. Believe it or not, Nat Turner lives on. These are Nat Turner's descendants. These are his great-great-great-grandchildren, Alvin Turner and Evelyn Hawkins. And in 2016, they were given the remains of Nat Turner, the state of Virginia, after holding them for 185 years, turned over his remains to his family. The legend of Nat Turner continues to evolve. We still don't have all the details that they have about Nat Turner, because they would feed us Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and some of those who really were not insurrectionists. And Frederick Douglass definitely was not. Harriet Tubman was a revolutionary. She did not plan or execute an insurrection. She carried the shotgun, they say, because of the enslaved people that she was rescuing, ones who got scared along the way and wanted to turn back. And what they say she said was she would have to end up ending their life, because she's not going to let them go back and tell what the whole system of the Underground Railroad was. But she did not plan or execute an insurrection. She was just trying to protect the Underground Railroad with that weapon. Nat Turner was a real hero, and he put his courage and his life on the line. And for that, during Black History Month, we salute Nat Turner. And Lee, thank you for this suggestion, and keep them coming. If you want me to talk about something, let me know. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.